Hey everyone, get ready for an inspiring episode of Noon featuring Mario, a dedicated firefighter whose passion extends beyond the firehouse into the realm of real estate. Mario's journey began in the fire service, where he dedicated himself to serving his community for many years. Alongside his firefighting duties, Mario embarked on a new venture by founding Casa Montoya Realty, a testament to his entrepreneurial spirit and commitment to making a difference. Through Casa Montoya Realty, Mario has established a special program aimed at giving back to the heroes who serve their community selflessly. This initiative reflects Mario's unwavering dedication to supporting fellow first responders, healthcare workers, and other essential personnel. Join us for a heartwarming conversation as Mario shares insights from his dual roles as a firefighter and real estate entrepreneur. This episode promises to shed light on Mario's innovative approach to serving his community and honoring those who dedicate their lives to others. Let's get started. Ever wondered about the incredible world of nursing? If your answer is a resounding yes, then the Conversing Nurse podcast with the wonderful Michelle Harris is a must listen. Join Michelle each week as she engages in heartfelt conversations with nurses from diverse specialties, sharing profound insights into their roles, their love for nursing, and the positive changes they bring to the profession. Tune in on all major platforms to experience the warmth and inspiration of nurses who truly make the profession great. Link in the description below. All right, Mario, thank you so much for joining us on the Noon podcast today. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's so great to have you on. And I'm sure everybody here listening is excited to learn more about you. Can I get an introduction?
Yeah, sure. My name is Mario Montoya. I am here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a 15-year Army veteran, 16 years with our local fire department, and going on 13 years as a real estate qualifying broker with my own real estate brokerage.
That's really cool. Looking at your Facebook page, it sounds like you do have a long line of service time, but you also have a lot of family in the service.
I do, yeah. I have aunts and uncles that are in military. I have cousins that are military. I have, a lot of veteran family members. I have cousins that are in the fire service. Yeah, we tend to spread our service around pretty well. So we're pretty well rounded.
That's awesome. So is it something that you've always known you were going to get into growing up?
I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'm still kind of trying to figure that out myself. But I've always been driven to some type of service, whether it be military or first responding, EMS. Even not being an EMS, I always kind of felt like I was drawn to be a part of providing some type of service for the community or for people, in our general area. And it's just always been something I've wanted to do.
And do you feel like that's how you felt because you have so many family members that are doing it, or is that just you like personally have wanted to do that?
I think just growing up, my mom, she had always instilled in us that, we were to help whenever we were in a position to help. And I guess I can attribute it to her. She was always the one to, have us go and help out at service areas, whether it be like, like a local homeless shelter or help out with food banks, help out at our church. So I think that's probably where it comes from.
So I know that she's probably proud of who you are and what you became in your lifetime, but did she have any fear with you going off into the military? I'm assuming the military was first.
Military was first. I found myself in the recruiter's office a couple of days after 9/11. And yeah, I remember her shedding some tears when she heard that I wanted to join the military, but everything's worked out. And I could honestly say that she was probably the best training officer that I ever had growing up. She was my original drill sergeant. She was the one that pretty much made me value hard work and ethics and, putting our best foot forward and giving 100% into everything that we do. So yeah, she was the original drill sergeant before the drill sergeants got a hold of me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that she was supportive of your actions, although sad, but supportive of your actions. So, how
Yeah.
old were you and what were you doing when 9/11 happened?
Let's see, 9/11. 9/11 was in 2001. I was just under 20 years old. So I was 19. I already had my first son. My first son
Wow.
was a couple months old. And I remember that morning, I was in school. I was getting ready for college for my classes. And I remember turning on the TV in our room, and they were already kind of talking about the first plane going into the building, and just kind of like looking at it, like trying to figure out like what was going on and what actually happened, and thinking that this was an accident. And I remember changing my son that morning. Had to change his diaper, get him ready, and then I took off for class. And by the time I parked my car, I think I walked into the McDonald's on Central and University, and there was a TV up, and they were showing the display of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center, and the reality kind of sinking in that this was not an accident. And I don't know, I think that was exactly what happened. I remember that day like it was yesterday, and that was kind of like one of those pivotal moments that kind of pushed me in a direction that defined the rest of the life as I know it. You know,
Sure. So, what made you decide Army?
I don't know. I really didn't feel like the Air Force was the route that I wanted to go. Even though we're in an Air Force city, I always felt like boots on ground was the direction I wanted to be. I wanted to be hands on. I wanted to be, the one with the rifle in my hand. I wanted to be the one that was storming the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't really know what it means to be a part of the military, all you can do is like kind of fall back on the movies and the things that you've seen on TV. And my grandfather was Army. I have an uncle that's a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and I don't know, just kind of wanted to follow in their footsteps.
And how much of a wake up call was it for you when you got in?
Honestly, I've always respected people in authority, so I've never really had any problem with people telling me what to do or how to do things or yelling at me. And I remember, getting into the military. Yes, I was. I think I was probably 20 by the time I took off. But I walking in with a little college time under my belt. There were definitely younger kids that were there. I was 20. There were some 18-year-olds, and I remember this one kid. He was fresh, and he was like freshly 18, and he was having the hardest time. He was the one that was real meek and mild, and scrawny, and I remember this one moment. All of us were at attention, and our drill sergeant was just like yelling at us, and he was just this bulldog looking guy, and he had just like this underbite, and just a beast, right? And I remember he was yelling at this private, and he was saying, "Do you think I'm gonna kick your whatever, And do you think I'm gonna beat you up?" And this kid was like, "Yes, drill sergeant," and he was crying, and it was at that moment when the drill sergeant responded to me. He said, I can't even touch you. The military won't let me touch you." And I remember there was a part of me that died that moment, because that was all that the military had on me, was this fear that, these drill sergeants are going to beat my ass if I step out of line, if I don't do one thing, or if I don't follow the order to the T, or if I don't give it my 100%, or whatever it was. That was the fear that was in me from, all the movies and from the stories of my uncle and my grandfather. And it's the drill sergeants that make you into a man and build you back up into the military. And I remember at that moment I was like, oh wow, that's not what I signed up for. I kind of signed up for getting my ass beat if I didn't do what I was told to do. And but we were already a few weeks in, and of course with the respect that I had for him, it pushed me to continue on and maintain the level of discipline that I had. But yeah, I remember that was my first take at it.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And did you go out while you served? Did you get sent anywhere?
So I was stateside for the majority of my career. It wasn't until I was actually in the National Guard, I transitioned from Big Army to National Guard, that I was deployed out to Kosovo. And when I joined the Guard, there's a Army band here in town, and they were giving a $12,000 signing bonus for buglers, and I just happened to be a trumpeter. I played trumpet my whole life growing up, and in band, and this and that in high school, and I was like, well, shoot, I guess if I could continue serving and be a bugler, then maybe I'll join the military band. So I joined the Army band, and I ended up enjoying that part of my career. But it wasn't until a few years later that I was deployed out to Kosovo.
Uh-huh.
We were out there, and I was attached to the command sergeant major as his close protection detail, and he had hand selected me due to my EMS training, and he knew that I already had emergency medical training, and he liked the fact that I had that background. So it was just me and him, and we were attached together for 18 months, and it was amazing.
That's awesome. And was there any time where you had to use your training?
Yeah, yeah, there were. At that time, I was already in the fire department, so I had already been in for several years, and then getting deployed out to Kosovo with him. Put some of my skills to the test a couple times. We had a couple of incidences that required a little bit of emergency medicine, but nothing major, nothing like we see on the streets of
Yeah.
Albuquerque. So yeah,
All just kind of first aid, basic first aid kind of stuff.
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So when you were in the military, did you have to deal with any like hazing or anything crazy like that?
Yeah, yeah. I was a part of a couple of units that, let's say, the chain of command, they really were old school. So maybe they didn't exactly get the memo that we were not doing hazing anymore, and we were
Yeah.
not doing some of the things that aren't exactly allowed anymore now in today's military. But it was definitely a transition period, I think, in the military where I think 2000 was like an interesting time. 2001 was an interesting time where you had a ton of old school soldiers that were still in charge, and then 9/11 happened, where all these young kids and all these young guys were getting sent overseas, and they were getting firsthand experience as far as what real hand-to-hand combat and urban warfare was. Going and kicking doors in and being boots on ground in a major incident.
Hmm.
And after 2000, you were getting 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds that were coming back with way more experience than all these old school instructors, right? And I remember going to one of my sergeant school training, and the instructors that may have been in Desert Storm, or may have been in one of those conflicts, they were actually looking up to the younger guys, the 20-year-olds, the 21-year-olds, and asking, okay, well, hey, why don't you lead this block, because you probably know or have a better firsthand knowledge of what's actually being done out there in Iraq and Afghanistan. Why don't you tell us what we need to be focusing on now? And I think that was like that pivotal moment, at least in the Army side, where the older cadre were starting to look at us that were coming back from overseas as having a little bit more firsthand knowledge.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. It's so sad that that was something that people had to deal with for so long. So, what prompted the transition from full-time service to National Guard?
Well, it was just time. I was here in Albuquerque. Had my younger son, or now my older son, but my son was here, and it was just time to kind of focus more on being here in Albuquerque and just making this where I'm going to be. So going from the active side to the National Guard side, it just made a little bit more sense. So yeah, transitioning to the Guard allowed me to start a full-time career, and that's when I came across a few people that kind of influenced me to look into the fire department, and that was the route that I took. So I was full-time fire, and had the National Guard kind of like on the back burner as the weekend warrior.
Sure. And you were able to do that position with no problems from the fire department?
Oh yeah, yeah, that was fun.
Okay, good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, the nice thing with the fire department is, they really give you all the time that you need, and I mean that's just the way of the world now. Whether when you're a weekend warrior, almost every employer I think now has something set up for you to have, military time off, so you can go and do your training on the weekends if you need to. So yeah, it was no deal at all.
That's awesome. Did you have any problems when you were getting into the fire department?
Actually, no, I didn't. I had a big, thick book of recommendation letters from colonels and sergeant majors and officers, that were recommending me to, writing really amazing letters of recommendation. And I think with that and the training that I had already, submitting it, I remember the class that I got in um, that year. There was over like 500 applicants for 40 or 50 positions. And I remember, doing the initial training and the initial testing and talking with some of these guys and like, oh yeah, man, I've been trying out for 5 years and they haven't selected me, or I've been trying out for
Mm.
7 years and I haven't been selected. And I was like, oh, that's kind of discouraging. But I got in first time. It was my first try, and started in the class of the 74th Cadet class in 2007.
And at that time, were you required to have your EMT license?
Yes, yeah, we had to be EMT, at least an EMT basic. We had to have the licensure even to try out. So I think that's changed now. Now I think they're hiring anybody, and then they're putting them through EMT basic training through the academy. So it's changed a little bit, but yeah, back
Just a
then we
little.
had to. Yeah, back then we had to have everything in order.
Yeah. Well, in the early 2000s, too, that was a new transition because you didn't, for a long time, you didn't have to have your EMT license. You could just apply and then take the class afterwards.
Right,
And then they found it was just easier to hire people who already had their license. So, did you
right.
get your EMT basic in anticipation of applying for the fire department?
I did, and yeah, that's where I met my wife. Now we met in our EMT basic class, and she was that cute chick that was in the front of the class, and I was that guy with the messed up hair showing up almost late to class with sweatpants on, and guess it was just meant to be.
And is she still in EMS?
She is actually. She's a nurse injector, so she just got her nursing license, and she works at a med spa here in town,
Oh,
and she does Botox. So anyone who's looking to for the fountain of youth, I got someone for you, and I'll send you her way.
sounds good. That's a cake job, dude.
You know what? She went. We got through our basic class, and she went through phlebotomy that route. She was at the blood labs, and then she got in to the surgical room at one of the hospitals here in town as a surgical tech,
Mm-hmm.
and she was there for 12, 13 years, and then she finished her nursing license. So I mean, she's paid her time and she's paid her dues, and now she's in a good position, and she really enjoys what she's doing now, and it's peace of mind, and I'm happy for her. She's doing really well.
Do your schedules conflict ever? I know nursing school is hard.
It was an interesting time getting her through nursing school. She took a year, maybe a year and a half off, but that was during the beautiful years of real estate. So
Mhm.
yeah, she had a she's a strong student, strong worker. She was able to focus on school. She didn't have to work, and I was fortunate enough to be able to carry the household on the real estate income, so it worked out well.
That's awesome, dude. And
Yeah.
fantastic for her being able to do that because there's not a lot of people that can. And some of these programs that we have, like PA, MD, nursing, even EMT paramedic, it's really hard to work while taking those programs. And the people that do it, like, hats off to them. I had to work full time through paramedic school, and I literally was in class, 3 to 4 days a week. And then every weekend I was working my full time job. So it was rough. That's hard.
Tough. Yeah,
You promoted up to paramedic, right?
I did. Yep. I was a few years in with the department, and the opportunity kind of presented itself to go to P school, and that's the beauty with with the fire department is, if you're already a paid employee and you're going through their P school, they just pull you out of rotation. You go on a 40-hour work week, which actually is 40 hours in class, and they just pay you to get your P school, your P license. So it worked out pretty well. Had that, and then went back out to the field once I was licensed.
So, how long were you a basic before you became a paramedic?
I think it was about 7 years.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, and kind of in the fire service, the way I felt was I really wanted a handle on the job, and I really wanted a handle on being a firefighter first, and wanted to be able to know that I knew the ins and outs of my job description. And it was about like 7 years that I felt like it was probably time to start looking at promoting and moving up the chain, and yeah, that was it was a good time. I kind of felt like it was right for me.
Yeah, it's a pretty big commitment to go from EMT basic to EMT paramedic. There's a lot of responsibility that rides on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So, you did that for several years and then you got out of the fire department. What was your next step?
When I separated from the fire department, it gave me an opportunity to really focus on real estate. And on the real estate side, I had already started my own brokerage, so I own my own company. And when I got into real estate, I got into real estate to kind of supplement my income when I was getting out of the military. So my life has always kind of been like these stepping stones, like, okay, I have this, and then I'm going to baby step into that, and I'm going to get out of that, but I got to have something else in order. And so when I got into real estate, being a veteran, number one, and then being a part of the fire service and being in medicine, right, as an EMT, I was, I had an opportunity to kind of look for programs that are built to support or to give back to heroes, the hero clientele. And there's so many programs out there. There's, Good Neighbor Next Door. There's all these different programs that, I wanted to look into on a personal basis for each and every one of them and kind of vet them. And I came across a program called Homes for Heroes, which is a national organization. And it's a foundation that was started after 9/11. And after kind of looking into it and understanding what it was all about, I mean, it was the best program that I could come across. And the big thing about Homes for Heroes is that any hero client that works with the Homes for Heroes affiliate, they get back 25% of the realtor's commission. And I loved that, because being a part of the fire service, you're sitting around the fire station and, you're like, hey, does anybody know a concrete guy? Hey, does anybody know a contractor? And it's like, oh, yeah, call Joe Schmo. And it's like, oh, well, will Joe Schmo give me the bro discount?
Yeah.
And this was like the automatic bro discount. And I was like, dude, I got it. I got to be a part of Homes for Heroes so I can give my bro discount to all my bros and sisters out there. So I built my real estate brokerage on the foundation of Homes for Heroes, and separating and taking a step away from the fire department allowed me to focus on my real estate career and allowed me to start hiring and handpicking the correct realtors that I wanted to work with me, that were like-minded, that had military background, that had, some type of law enforcement background. And, now I have a brokerage that does about, 18 to 20 million in production a year. And I have a team of 7 Homes for Heroes affiliates. I have 12 agents that work under me, and we're all like-minded, and everybody's like with the same goal and the same focus of giving back to our clients and putting clients first. So it's great.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's got to be hard though, giving up that 25%.
At the end of the year, when other realtors are bragging about how much, gross commission they earned, all of us Homes for Heroes affiliates are bragging about how much money we gave back. And honestly, I don't look at it as money taken away. It's money that wasn't mine to begin with. And if in hiring me, because I'm giving back to them, I make some money too, well, everybody wins.
Yeah, no, that's a great attitude to have, dude. That's
Yeah.
fantastic that you're doing that for everybody. Who's covered under the hero term?
Homes for Heroes, we cover the five hero groups, which is law enforcement, military, active, and veteran firefighters. So that spans from, city, BC, or Bernalillo County, or, the county departments, wildland. So anyone in the fire service falls into that. All medical professionals and all educators. And the educators and the medical professionals, those are the ones that kind of, everyone's like, well, do I qualify? Do I qualify? And the way I do business is anybody who's getting a paycheck or a pension or a retirement from an institution that falls in those categories, they get my thanks because, as you know, it's not just the people who are out on the streets, it's the supportive units out there too that, I mean, they're in the thick of it all, just with the rest of us. So
Yeah.
it's not just the 5-5 driver or the medic on the truck, but it's also the dispatchers that are pulling those 16-hour shifts. So that's what I offer it to.
Cool. Does that include nurses, hospital workers?
Everyone. So
Everyone.
nurses,
Great.
if you're an optometrist, if you are a pharmacy tech that's working at CVS, you're getting it. If you
Okay.
are a janitor that's picking up the biohazard bags out of the hospital rooms, guess what? You're getting it too because you were right there during the COVID years, just with the rest of us. So yeah, no,
That's
the
fantastic.
thanks, yeah, the thanks goes a long way, and I'm so happy to do it, and I love it. I love the fact that my team sees the beauty in it, and yeah, so that's that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You worried me for a second because you were shaking your head, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't have mentioned the nurses, but I'm glad that you cover everybody.
I don't think my wife would allow me not to
Not
get
to.
back to the nurses.
Yeah, no, that's good, dude. All right. So you've done I believe you said earlier, 5 years that you've been separated, and now what's your next step?
Well, I found myself in a unique position to be getting back in with the fire department. For 5 years, I've missed the camaraderie. I've missed the need inside to be serving at that capacity. So yeah, I am currently working on my EMT basic license because I'll be damned if I go back in and have that much responsibility.
You're like, no, fuck
No, no,
that.
no. I will go back. I will go back as an EMT basic, and I will support as a basic, and I will provide medical care at the basic level to the best of my basic abilities.
Yeah, you're gonna hope to get on that ladder truck, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Your ancillary support.
Oh man. Whatever you need me to do, I will do it from right here.
That's fantastic.
Once you've paid a little bit of time and you've climbed the ladder a little bit with some seniority, I think that's okay.
And they're gonna support the time that you've spent there already, right? You're not starting all over.
Nope, I'll go back in 16 years para and 16 years as a driver and go back in as a basic EMT, and I'm totally happy with it.
Yeah, are you dreading any part of going back?
I me and you, we both know who my EMT instructor is, and I was just chatting with him about how I'm kind of starting to feel a certain way. I can definitely say a little anxiety about going back. I think after being in an EMS for so long, uh, you start having certain ideas and certain dreams. Maybe you start having reoccurring dreams. And I was just telling him the other day that for the first time in several years, I had a reoccurring dream that I remember having when I was, active last. And I thought that was interesting. I woke up and I remember sitting in bed and just kind of thinking about the dream and being like, the last time I had that dream was a few years ago. And it's interesting that it's coming back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say there's a little anxiety that's attached to it, but, you know, that's how it goes.
Do you have any professional help that you're utilizing?
I am not at this time. And the reason for that is because this is so fresh, getting the idea of getting back in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's been some times over the last several years that I have reached out to, a therapist and chatted a little bit about this and that. There has been some people that I have always been able to reach out to and have always felt open enough to, or confident enough to open up to them and chat about, you know, maybe past calls or past runs that we've done. And yeah, so I know who my go-to people are, and I know that they will always be there for me. So maybe it's time for me to give them a call again and say, hey, let's have that coffee again.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of skirting around the idea of it, but were you ever diagnosed with PTSD?
I was, and I was diagnosed with PTSD when I got out of the military,
Mm-hmm.
which was, about 7 years after I got in with the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and honestly, like my military career, it provided no situations where I can complain of any PTSD issues. But yeah, the fire service, I guarantee you, I picked up some PTSD issues, and yeah.
Was that from the fire side or the EMS side?
Well, I would say from EMS, and of course with the fire department, we're running about, I don't know, 90% EMS calls out of our call volume. And stations that I've always been attached to, they're up and down the busy corridor of our city. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, you're working 2 days on, 4 days off. And, for my first station that I've been to, it was right outside of the International District. And I mean, we were running, I don't know, 30 to 40 calls in a 48 hour. And then the last station that I was attached to, we were in another highly busy area. And I think my last cycle, I ran 58 and a 48.
Oh,
And,
gross.
we had a lieutenant that was just balls to the wall and just loved running the calls. And, he just hyped everyone up, and we were all right there with him. So, yeah, I mean, my whole career as I knew it was just nonstop, all day, all long, and I'm not looking forward to going back to that. So I'm hoping I have enough seniority to kind of bid to the West Side area.
Oh man, I don't know how you guys do that.
Well, like I said, I'm really hoping not to get back to that corridor, but yeah, it is what it is, and it's just time to finish off this career and just feel good about finishing off something.
Yeah, and you're almost done, dude. You could do it.
Almost done.
4.5, 5 years. You've almost got it.
I'm there. I'm already there, baby.
So, do you feel comfortable sharing some of your worst calls?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of interesting because over the last several years, I've made friends with people that have been in this, in some type of service, part of the community. And one of the friends that I've made, she's a retired Air Force officer, and she ended up getting a job at a wellness center, and she works with kids, that probably have a little bit of a troubled past or probably don't have that much of a direction. And they kind of give them an opportunity and a place to study and a place to have a good environment and to focus on, career and a good career path, right? And over the last several years, she's invited me to come over and participate on like a career day type thing. And you know, the first time she invited me over, I really didn't know what it was that I was participating in. But I got there and she said, "Hey, why don't you tell, there's a group of 20 kids here in front of me, and some of them want to get into EMS, and some of them want to get into fire, and some of them want to get into paramedicine and this and that, and the military." And I kind of caught myself a little off guard and getting thrown in a position where I needed to talk about some of my most memorable calls, just to
Yeah.
give them some sort of reality check. It's not all wearing bunkers and running into fires and pulling out babies.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the calls that I've been able to talk about several times in the last couple of years was, I remember I was at one of the busier stations, and we get a call out, and it was like about 2:30 in the morning, and the tones go off, and if the tones go off in a certain order, you kind of know the severity of the call. And the pumper tones go off, and then the rescue tones go off, which means that it was a fire call, but it wasn't followed with all the other fire engines to be dispatched. So they came over the dispatch, and they said, engine 12, rescue 12, responded out to the intersection of blah blah blah, whatever. And then the dispatcher, it was kind of weird because it was like, uh, guys, we really don't know what we're dealing with. We're getting calls about a vehicle accident, a vehicle on fire, a vehicle in a apartment complex, an apartment fire. We don't know exactly what we're dealing with right now. Please advise, when you get on scene. And I remember, we all jump into the truck, and we're preparing for the worst because we don't know what it is that we're dealing with. And we take off down the road, and we turn on the road that they say the accident's on, and we're driving up the hill, and we can see up the hill a glow, so we know there's a fire. And at that time, I don't think I was still a rookie. I was off for my rookie year. I'd already finished my 11-month test, but I was still very new in the department. And the station that I was at, I was also there with another one of my classmates. So here you are, you have a couple of firefighters that are a couple of years in. You have an amazing lieutenant, and he was just a godsend, as my first lieutenant, Donald Goulet. And we had a driver position that was, just being filled. So there was floating drivers here and there. So we were kind of like this makeshift crew, or like this crew that, really didn't have too much time to build our rapport with each other. And here we are, we're driving up this hill, and we get closer and we get closer, and we pull on scene, and I mean, it's just pandemonium. We had PD on scene, and we have a vehicle that had run into a tree. So there's a curve, and the van had hopped the curb, totally missed the turn, ran into a tree. In hitting the tree, the van was fully engulfed in flames. You had a couple of cops that were running around with their fire extinguishers. You had people coming out of this apartment complex with fire extinguishers. And I remember getting out of the truck, over the hum of the fire truck, and the people kind of yelling and screaming to for what saying what we needed to do. You could hear the screams of a person in the driver's seat of the van. And I remember that was all I could think was, shit, there's someone in this van. And the whole driver's area was engulfed in flames. And I remember I told my lieutenant, I'm going to the van, and he said, go. And so I remember I ran to the van, and I looked in, and sure enough, I just see, someone in the driver's seat, and flames coming up, up their chest. And I remember I got a rock, and I busted out the back window of the van, on the driver's side, behind the driver's door. And my buddy Sam was with me, and my other buddy Cy was with me. And I remember I jumped in the back window that I just busted out, and there's a female in the driver's seat, and she's screaming her head off. And I remember trying to yank on her, and she was pinned. The steering column had kind of come down on her. And I remember it was hotter than shit, that the flames were coming up. And I remember kind of reaching forward, and the only thing I could think to do was recline the seat, So I reached to the side, and I pulled the recliner, and the seat fell back, and that gave me enough room to reach in front of her and scoot the seat back.
Mm-hmm.
So that must have, I don't know. It feels like it was like such a fluid motion, and I'm sure it wasn't, but in my mind, in my memory, it happened really fast, but I don't know how that happened. It got to the point where she was able to get loose, and I remember Sam was at the window, the other firefighter, and I remember grabbing the the girl and kind of, you know, grabbing her leg or her hip or something, and pushing her, sliding her up the seat. And I remember the guys outside the vehicle pulling on her, you know, and getting her out of the window. And as I reached the last time, my glove had gotten snagged on her broken bone, and it kind of pulled my glove off. And just that brief second of my hand being exposed, I felt the heat, and it was hot, hot, hot. And I mean, this girl, she was charred, you know.
Yeah.
But they were able to pull her out of the window, and then of course they grabbed me, and I got out of the van. And then that's when the rest of the crew, they started just dousing they already had water on the van. But I remember I ran over to the rescue, and the rescue, it was a load and go situation, so we were in our rescue. And I jumped in with our rescue crew, and I rode into the hospital with them, and with this female patient. And I remember we're sitting in the back of the rescue, and I remember looking down at this girl, and I mean, she was 17, 18 maybe. Her shirt was charred and pretty burnt up. Both of her arms were broken, both of her legs were broken, and her hands were already burnt down to nubs. I remember just like looking down at her and thinking, this girl had no reason to be in that van tonight,
Yeah, at 2:30 in the
um
morning.
2:30 in the morning, yeah. And I remember the whole way to the hospital, the medic was trying to get a line and trying to establish some type of IV, and I was just holding her down, and that's all he instructed me to do. He said, just pin her down so that she stops moving. And I remember, having my knee on across her legs, and I mean, she's just flailing, like she's trying to move her body, and her arms are both broken, and they're like just broken noodles. So I'm like pinning her upper body down, and I'm pinning her down with my other leg, just like telling her, hey, just stop yelling, stop moving, stop moving. We're here to help you. And I remember just her like yelling at us, and I mean, it seemed like forever for us to establish the line, and for us to start pushing meds, and for the meds to start kicking in. And it seems like it wasn't until we pulled into the ambulance bay that she finally went unconscious. And then we transferred patient care, and we looked at each other, and it was just like, wow, that was insane.
Yeah, that's a long
And
drive from where you're at. That's like a 15, 20-minute drive, even going code 3 on the freeway.
yeah, it was a hustle. And I think that was the only patient that I ever went. I got off of shift that cycle, and I couldn't stop thinking about her. And in EMS, especially in the fire service, it's just one patient after another, and we pass it along, and that's it. See you later. On to the next one. But this is one of the patients that I needed to know what happened. I think maybe because it was so intimate that I got her out of her burning seat.
Mm-hmm.
And I got off a shift, and I went to the hospital that next morning, or the day after, whatever it was. And I asked to see this patient, and the nurse that was there, they're like, "Oh man, yeah, you got to come in here. The family's here. They'd like to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I walked in there into this emergency waiting room, and the whole family was there, and the mom came up and grabbed me and held me, and gave me a hug. And she was asking me the questions like I knew the answers, like, what was she doing there, and why was she there, and what happened. And I was like, man, I don't have any answers for you. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
But I ended up following up with her. Well, not with her, but with some of the staff at the hospital, maybe a couple weeks later. And she was in ICU for a long time, but she ended up becoming a quadriplegic. She lost both her arms and legs, and they were skin grafting off of her back for her chest. And I would love to come across her today, you know, just to kind of see how her life is. But that was years and years ago. But yeah, that's something I'll never forget, that call.
Yeah, that's a rough call, and especially like you said, being as intimate with her in that position as you were. And you said that it probably wasn't a very fluid movement, but I don't know, like when you're in that position, being smart enough to think to recline the seat and pull the seat back, that's pretty quick thinking, and it probably happened a lot faster than you think it did because you talked about how hot it was and you didn't realize how hot it was until your glove came off. You know what I mean? And you were in that spot, you were
Yeah,
there, so you would have felt it if you had been there, as long as you
longer.
think that you were. Yeah.
That's right. It only took me about 5 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm just kidding. No, I appreciate you sharing that story, and that's sad that the parents didn't know where she was or what she was doing at that time, and while I don't think it was fair for the mom to be asking you those questions, I think that she felt like she just had no answers at that time either.
Yeah, and being a father of a daughter now, I just hope I can know where she's at all times. You know what I mean? I hope
Yeah.
we I hope we provide her a happy enough home where she doesn't feel like she has to be anywhere else that she's not supposed to be. So
I can't lie and say that I never snuck out. You know what I mean? But
I can't lie either.
I wasn't a super bad kid. I wasn't sneaking out to do drugs or anything. I was just sneaking out to hang out. And I don't know, I
That's
had some
all.
really good times.
I've had to confess to my parents, now that I'm an adult, I can look back and say, oh, yeah, there was that summer that, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, no, I got busted. My mom, ooh, she yelled at me. I was in trouble and grounded. Not for very long, but I was grounded for a little while.
Yeah. You can't have a good childhood and not be grounded at least once or twice.
At least once or twice, exactly. No belt, no chanclas or chopos or
Well, you got it easy then.
I don't even want to know what you got.
Oh, that's another podcast.
Oh yeah. All the different tools that can be used to
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
discipline your child, right?
that's right.
Man, that's a rough one. It's so sad that we have to see people in these positions, but a lot of lay people they just think, that's what you signed up for. This is what you're supposed
Yeah,
to do. You know that coming into this job.
yeah,
And we know we're going to see terrible things, right? We expect that. We just don't expect it to be as terrible as it is, I think.
right, right,
Anybody who hopes for that, that's not a great situation to be in anyways, but
right.
that's
Yeah, I
rough.
remember this other call, same area, and it was before this one that we just talked about. But I remember we got called out to a stabbing, and it was right down the road. We could have walked there, but we took the truck, of course. And we get there, and the lieutenant looks at me. He's like, "Hey, Montoya, why don't you go and get the patient, and I'm gonna start, asking questions or whatever, right?" So I remember I walk up, and there's this gentleman sitting on the curb of the street, and he has his hand up on his cheek and another hand on his arm, and I was like, "Hey man, what's up?" He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I was like, "Okay, you all right?" He's like, "No, not really." I'm like, "Okay, well, why don't you stand up?" So he stands up, and he has his arm kind of up against his chest area, and I was like, "Did you get stabbed? What are we dealing with?" And I was like, "Why don't you put your hands down?" And I remember he put both hands down, and his cheek was filleted.
Oh man.
His whole cheek just kind of fell off his face, and then his arm was filleted, and his whole like arm just, the skin and the muscle of his arm just rolled off his arm, and he put his arm to the side, and he had his whole flank was just sliced up, and that fell off.
Jeez.
And I was like, "Oh, sit down. Why don't you sit down and put your hands back?" So the guy sits down and he puts his hand back on his cheek and his other arm on it, and his other hand on his arm, and he put his arm against his flank. And I say, I look at the cop, and I was like, what the hell happened? He goes, oh yeah, he got in a fight with this other guy, and that guy had a machete, and
Oh man.
he just started slicing him up. And I was like, dude, that's not a stabbing, that's a different call, bro.
What do you call that?
I don't know what you call it, but but I remember I was sitting there, and I'm like looking at this guy, and my lieutenant comes up, and he's like, hey Montoya, hey man, come on, snap out of it, snap out of it. Are you in shock? Or I can't remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, hey man, snap out of it and start your job, And I was like, no, I'm good. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly needs to happen first.
Yeah.
And by the time I was done with this guy, I mean, the guy looked like a mummy. He had his whole head wrapped up, and his torso was wrapped, and I had um, pressure dressings all over the place, and his arm was wrapped up, and he was in a triangle bandage, and that was bandaged to his body, and I remember I took a step back after I was done. I was like, "You look good."
You can't even tell.
And the lieutenant looked at me. He's like, "Hey, you're okay, right? Like, I'm not gonna have to worry about you, huh?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm good."
He's like, you're scaring me a little bit. Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, we joked to not joke, but that was a good topic of conversation for a good few months after that. Like, hey, hey, Hito, he would always call us Hito. Hey, mijito, remember that time you mummified that guy that got filleted? I was like, I remember. He's like, that was pretty good.
And what else are you supposed to do?
Stop the bleeding, baby.
Yeah, that's
Stop the
right.
bleeding.
And if they come out looking like a mummy, well, then that's all you can do, right?
That's how it goes sometimes.
And I know you said that, not to poke fun, but that is what we do. Like, that's how we keep going, right? Because his situation sucked. But what
Yeah,
can we do?
yeah,
I would be
right.
curious. I want to Google now how many machete injuries happen in the state of New Mexico versus the United States, right? Because we have so many machete injuries here. It's nuts.
It's insane. Yeah,
Yes, there's always somebody walking around with a machete, and you just know they're in, like, that's trouble right there.
yeah. That's gonna be our call in about a half hour. Yep.
I know. And
Jeez, nuts.
I don't remember what year I was in, but in high school we had a big cholo dude, huge cholo dude, and the Cruce's cop that does standby security for the high school that day. I don't know if he got tipped off or what, but he was talking to this kid, and this was back early 2000s when, I don't know if you know what Jinko jeans are.
Yeah.
Jinko jeans were real popular. They're like the really big baggy pants. And this
Right, right.
kid standing outside pulled a machete out of his pants and was threatening the cop with it. And you're just like, what the fuck, dude? Why did you bring that? Like, what is the point of that?
There's nothing good that's gonna happen with that.
No, there's not. So I'm curious to know what the statistics are on that. I'll have to look it up.
Please do, and make sure you follow up with me, okay?
I will. I'll send you that information for sure. So, do you have any good calls that you'd like to share? Anything in particular that was memorable for you?
I don't know why, um, but there was another situation. We get toned out to respond down to one's district. The dispatch again was really weird, but it came across engine 7, engine 1 is requesting you to assist on a call. Give me a call when you're in a route or whatever. So of course LT gives them a call, and he looks at me. I think I was no, I was still a firefighter at the time. But he looks in the back, and he hands me the phone. He goes, "Hey, it's for you." So I get the phone, and I'm talking to dispatch, and dispatch is like, "Hey, man, I don't know what the deal is, but LT over on Engine 1 is requesting you to come out in person. They need your help with with a psych patient. I was like, all right, well,
That's very
we're on our way.
specific. Yeah.
So I give the phone back to LT, and he's like, what's this all about? And I was like, I have no idea. So we get downtown, and we were like over at the bus depot, and we pull up, and engine one's on scene, and he's like, hey Mario, before PD does something stupid, why don't you go over here and talk this guy talk this guy out of, you know, get the knife out of this guy's hands or whatever. I'm like, what? What are we talking about here? And he's like, and it kind of stemmed from a conversation that we had had a couple cycles earlier, just about psych patients, and I don't know what the conversation was, and I can't really remember what it was, but I remember we were kind of just talking about empathy and being able to put yourself in a psych patient's position, and just trying to relate with them and trying to get to their level, you know.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that lieutenant that cycle felt the need to allow me to have the opportunity to talk the knife out of the psych patient's hand. So I remember, I walk up, and this patient's kind of up against the rail. He has a knife in his hand, and PD pretty much has their, I don't know if they had their guns drawn or if their hand was on the gun or what. So I start talking to this guy, and middle-aged male, a patient, and he's just, threatening to cut himself and threatening to cause harm to whatever. And I remember I just kind of like start talking to him and talking to him, at his level, and he's all agitated and fired up. And I remember like just looking at him, I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I'll cut, I'll do it. And he's just going nuts, right? And the only thing I could really think of was like, okay, well, how would I talk to my kid if I want to get their attention? And I remember I kind of looked at him and I was like, hey, um, I spy with my little eye something yellow. I spy with my little eye something yellow. And this guy, he's like, he's got like these shifty eyes, and he's like, uh, 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 that sign. I was like, nope, not that sign, not that sign. He's like, um, uh, uh, light, that light. And I was like, nope, not that light. And he's like, that flag. I was like, yeah, you got it. All right, man, your turn. And he's like, all right. And as we're talking, I'm like walking up next to him, and he's like, I spy with my little eye something red. I was like, that light. Nope, not that light. I was like, the fire truck. He's like, yeah, the fire truck. I was like, oh, right on, man. All right, my turn. He's like, okay. And by this time, like I'm already like within arm's reach of him. And I'm like, well, I spy with my little eye something that goes fast. He's like, oh, that's easy. Motorcycle. Nope, not the motorcycle. The train. Yeah, the train. Good job, man. Yeah, good job. Your turn. And he's like, all right, I spy with my little eye. And by this time, I'm standing next to him. I was like, hey, guys, let me see that cool knife. And he handed it right over. And I remember like I just sat there, and now we're both kind of like leaning up on the railing, and we're playing I Spy. And I remember just kind of like looking out at the crews, and PD now they're just like hanging out, talking to each other, and the fire crews are just sitting there talking with each other, and I'm sitting here talking with this psych patient, playing I Spy, and in the back of my head, and it's something that I always kind of think about. It's like, what would have happened there on that call if, for whatever reason, they didn't call me out, and which was totally unnecessary, but for whatever reason they did. It's just moments like those two calls. I mean, one was really horrible, and one was really great. that was not that heroic, but it was so elementary and so basic. It just kind of those are just two calls that I kind of always fall back on when I'm kind of wondering if I made the right decision or if I'm making the right decision to move forward with finishing off this career or showing back up at work or being a part of this EMS system or responding to a call. It's like you never really know what you're responding to, and you never really know what situation you're going to be getting yourself into, and you never really know if you're going to be that one at that exact moment that has to make the decision to change someone's life, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, the answer that I always come back to is, yeah, this is the right decision, and I have been put in a position to make a small difference in someone's life or the outcome of someone's situation, and I want to be in that position, you know.
Yeah, no, and it's really fantastic that lieutenant or the captain, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one you said, had the wherewithal to think of that conversation that you had just had with him, and I can tell that you're really proud of that moment because you got choked up when you talked about it, and that's really impressive, dude. And I think you going back right now to the fire department to help kind of teach some of these moments is fantastic. I think everybody should do that, and I think that the fire department and the people that work with you on whichever station that you go to will have a lot to learn from you.
Well, I hope so.
Have you read the book Verbal Judo?
I have.
Yeah, that's it
Yeah.
seems almost like a story right out of his book. So it's funny that you do that. And that's a really
Yeah.
good that's really good. I hope that you push for more people to read that book because I think even if you don't believe in everything that he says in his book and you don't believe in every story, taking out any little piece of that book makes you a better communicator and makes you really empathize with the people that we are here to service, basically the community that we're here to help. That book, even again, if you only take one little piece, is going to make you a better provider.
That's true. Yeah.
You're right, that story could have gone either direction, right? It could have gone either way. It could have either been a shooting or it could have been a self-inflicted stab wound. Hopefully, after you got that knife away, he was able to get the services that he needed to get better.
Well, yeah, and like you just said, that could have ended in several different ways, and the way it ended up is by rescue kind of walking him onto and sitting him down on a gurney and 5-5 kind of carrying him off. But who knows?
Yeah, indeed. Who knows? And you never know when you're going to make that difference. The big thing is having that empathy for that patient in any situation, right? It's really easy for us to get burned out and just be like, "Come on, buddy, we're picking you up again today. Like, really, really, why are we doing
Yeah.
this?" It's so easy to be in that mindset, especially when you're working a 48-hour shift and you're on hour 45 and you've already done 45 other missions or call outs. It's easy to be that burnout, but we got to tell these younger guys and we got to tell these older guys, like, we are here for a reason. Let's be that reason.
True that.
Awesome. Well, Mario, I'm going to give you the floor to open up how people can find you, how they can reach out to you. What do we need to do?
Well, I think the best way to reach out to me, since I am most established as Mario Montoya, qualifying broker and owner of Casa Montoya Realty, is by taking and putting out a shameless plug for my company.
And we both know that's the reason you reached out to me.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I know it's not normal having a realtor on some type of platform to plug their business, but I haven't come across anyone, and I don't know. I'm sure there's other people like me, but I haven't come across anyone who's actually built their entire brokerage and business on the grounds of giving back.
Yeah.
So, I am my brokerage is the exclusive Homes for Heroes brokerage in the state of New Mexico. I'm the number one Homes for Heroes affiliate in the state of New Mexico. I think I'm, as of this morning, number 20 in the nation
Wow.
out of out of over 5,000 affiliates, and I've given back over $300,000 back to my hero clients. We've helped out over 150 clients either buy or sell real estate, and I have a good track record. And I'm very consistent with people that I work with. And the reason I do this program is because it allows me to work with my people. It allows me to work with nurses and doctors and medical professionals and firefighters and, the guys over at MDC and, the SO sheriff officer and, county fire. And, it allows me to show up in my tactical pants, my 511 pants and my standard Army issue jacket from 2004 and show up at a house or at a coffee shop to meet this client that is nervous about meeting a realtor and not knowing if we're gonna have a connection, or is this guy just trying to take advantage of me, but seeing things that they can relate to, seeing a jacket that they have in their closet and know, like, oh, hey, this guy must be a veteran. Hey, are you a veteran? Yeah, I am. And now automatically we're brothers. And now I'm not just a realtor trying to, make a commission off of you. I'm actually someone that you are, that's been in your position, that has bought their first house before. And I'm here to let you know that, I'm here for you and I'm here to help you out. And in the process, I'm here to give you back some money to help you with closing costs, to help you buy appliances, to help you break your lease so that you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I'm stuck in this lease for another 8 months, but I really found this house that I really love, but it's going to cost me $2,000 to break the lease. Well, don't worry, I'll pay that fee for you, So, you can reach out to me, 505-681-3125. That's my number. You can email me at mario@casamontoyarealty.com. You can go to my website, www.casamontoyarealty.com. I'm #1 Homes for Heroes affiliate in the state of New Mexico, and I'm here to serve our guys. You know what I mean? Our guys and gals, fire, law enforcement, military, active and veteran, all medical professionals, and all educators. And I'm going to be around long after I'm done with the fire department.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been an amazing conversation, and it's been amazing getting to know you a little bit better today.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. And, I've really been loving listening to your podcasts, and I know you have a really good outreach. And, I just hope that anybody who's listening to this episode, might be able to get one takeaway, one little nugget, or we can make a connection on knowing that we're all in this together, and make the connection knowing that it doesn't matter what worst call you've ever been on. We're all out there together, and we're all here to support each other, and we're all a family, and we're all, brothers and sisters in the medical community.
That's right. And I hope everybody pays attention to that,
Yep.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it, and I hope you have a good day.
Hey, appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Before we wrap up, we have a few important announcements to share with you. Firstly, we're excited to announce the launch of our brand new 911 Nonsense Facebook group page. It's a community where everyone can go to connect, share ideas, discuss topics from the show, and get all of the most recent updates about the podcast. We'd love to have you join us and be part of the conversation. Next, we want to ask you to rate and review our podcast on your preferred platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach a wider audience. By rating and reviewing the show, you'll be supporting us in a big way and helping others discover 911 Nonsense. If you enjoy what we do and would like to support the podcast even further, we have a few options available. You can visit samspursuit.com to find the links to our 911 Nonsense merch page and our recently released Noon gear page. Every contribution, no matter the size, goes a long way in helping us continue to better the podcast. We know that not everyone is comfortable being on the podcast, but we still want to hear your stories and experiences. If you have a compelling story and would like to share it to be read by me in a future episode, please reach out to us via email at 911nonsense@gmail.com or through our website's contact section. If you choose to be anonymous, we'll make sure to respect your privacy while sharing your story in a way that resonates with our audience. Thank you again for tuning in. We truly appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more engaging content in the future. See you next week.